Hey, what's going on, everybody? James from Mortisk Media here, and we're going to be going on a brand new adventure. Now, originally, this channel was meant to be more for Blender and 3D based modeling, art, and that type of stuff. However, due to some hardware limitations, I've been forced to look into some other avenues, as I really want to try to produce as much content as I can, and I was at a bit of a stonewall. So I decided, you know what, let's look into some other projects, and I stumbled across Unreal Engine. Now, for Unreal Engine, we're going to be looking at this primarily from the features of the game design aspect, not the cinematography or the modeling, things like that. A lot of modeling and animation is still best done in Blender. But when it comes to creating games, it is a fun process, and I wanted to create some really nice detailed videos showing how to be able to do a lot of different things to get some video games off the ground, even if it's just fun ones for you and your friends to play. So what I'm going to be doing is creating a multi-part series about Unreal Engine. This is going to be everything from getting animation set up to character blueprints to more complex things like line traces and parkour systems and a whole bunch of cool stuff. So we're going to be looking at a bunch of different stuff, and hopefully I'll be able to show you guys how to be able to do some cool stuff, because I do want to make sure that at the end of the day that I am explaining this as best as possible. So these might be some longer videos, but I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. So without further ado, let's get into the first part of the video. And in this video, we're going to be looking at animation retargeting, and specifically taking one animation asset from Unreal Engine Marketplace and retargeting it or making it available to another character type from, again, Unreal Engine. Now, the reason why we're using Unreal Engine specific assets is because everything is already rigged and scaled, which is very important, to each other. So most of the animations that you get from the marketplace are already rigged and scaled in the same way that the Unreal Engine's mannequin is rigged and scaled. And then if you get a character that is rigged and scaled in the same fashion, it's easy for the engine to be able to say, okay, I want this to go here and this to move this way and this to move that way. So again, we're just focusing on primarily Unreal Engine based assets. So the first thing you're going to want to do, though, is after you already have your assets here, so you can see I have quite a few in my vault here, but we're just going to be looking at a couple. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make a new project. This way we can load some of these assets into our project. So we're going to go up to the top here where it says Launch Unreal Engine 5, and that is the other thing, excuse me, that's the other thing as well. We are using Unreal Engine 5. We are not using 4. Because I've noticed that a lot of the tutorials that are out there right now are primarily for Unreal Engine 4. There are a few that can be compatible with Unreal Engine 5, but I've noticed sometimes there's some issues with compatibility, so I wanted to make a series primarily with the new engine. So the first thing we're going to want to do is click on Games. And now from Games, we're going to click on Third Person. Now the reason why we're using Third Person is primarily because, well, you got to see everything. Everything you do in a third-person game is viewed by the player. This means all the motions of walking, running, crouching, sprinting, vaulting, climbing, everything is seen, which means that you want to make sure that these are as beautifully done as possible. You can get away with a lot more in first person than you can in third person. So basically, you can use these same processes in first-person game, but you may not have to do some of the things that we're doing for third person. So get away with a little bit more. So we're going to get a project name here. We're just going to call this tutorial, if I can type correctly. There we go. Alright, so then we're just going to click on Create, and we're going to leave all these settings the same because we want to just keep the starter content. We're not going to use ray tracing for anything that we're doing today, so we're just going to use all the default settings. Now, I will say you can select ray tracing if you wanted to. It's not necessarily detrimental to what we're doing. It doesn't change anything or halt anything, but it sometimes can slow things down. Ray tracing, depending on how you have your light set up and your scene set up, it can cause some problems as far as performance goes. So usually better to save that to the end and then just add it in after the fact. But as you can see here, we are in the third-person template for Unreal Engine 5. And if I press play here, you'll see I get a load up. I got a skeleton, mannequin kind of dude, and I can run around, I can jump, I can do a bunch of stuff. So you have by default a playable, I guess you could call this a game. I wouldn't really say it's a fun game, but it's something to play. But what I'm going to show you is how to be able to take animations, so like running, jumping, crouching, because you need animations for every single action your character is ever going to take. So sometimes you need, asset packs to be able to help you do this, but they're not already defaulted to your character. And this is where the retargeting really comes into play. So the first thing we're going to want to do is load in our assets to our project. Now we don't have to close our project, but as you can see, Unreal Engine has kind of been replaced from the Epic Games launcher. So we're going to bring back up Epic Games. We don't have to close Unreal Engine. We can keep it up. And then once it decides to load, alright, so we're going to go to our library, and we're going to pick some assets here. First one we'll do is I'll just do my sword pack. So this is a bunch of sword animations I have. So you just click on Add to Project, and then select on your project. So you see we got Tutorial Project here, and then Add to Project. And then we're going to do the same thing for a character, and for this one we're going to be using the Twin Blast skeleton from the Paragon assets, because this is a free asset, and they are amazing. So we're going to go ahead and add that as well to the tutorial project here. Now, if I go to the project, you're going to see that now we have the sword pack, and the Twin Blast is being added currently. So everything gets loaded in live, which I think is amazing. It really does make it really nice to be able to add in assets as you need them, versus having to load them all and then shut down the content, or shut down the engine, and then reload them back in. So it's a lot smoother of a process being able to live load all of these in. Alright, so it looks like we have our sword pack has been added. Looks like it's just verifying the last little bit of the Twin Blast Paragon. Perfect. Alright. So now we have our Twin Blast and we have our sword animations. So this is our main character and our sword animations. So what we're going to do is go to our content folder. So this is the folder that displays everything. We're going to right click, click on new folder, and we're going to call this playable character. Alright. And then we're going to open that playable character folder up that we just made and add 2 new folders to that. The first one is going to be just I and K. And then the next one is going to be IKR. Now what these are, this IK stands for inverse kinematics. This is a animation term for basically driving motion for your skeleton. What this essentially means is that if you have a rig set up with inverse kinematics, let's say set up on the foot, if you move that foot, what's going to happen is that all of the other bones associated to it are going to move with it as well. And you can set it up with certain clamping functions and other things as well, but the ultimate thing to gain from this is that inverse kinematics is essentially the driving motion. It's not forward driving motion, it's inward driving motion, which is why it's inverse. It's basically just driving all the bones on the inside of the skeleton. So the IKR is just for something later. We're going to be making some retargeters, so we want to have a folder for that. Don't worry too much about this right now. We're just going to focus on the IK folder. The first thing we want to do, though, before we go into the IK folder is make sure we can easily find the skeletons associated to our animations. So what I like to do is go to the pack that is associated to those animations. So in this case, it's the Garuzim sword pack. I apologize if I'm butchering that. I do love your animation pack. So if you're ever watching this, I don't want you to think I'm trying to diss you. I love your packs. I use them. So just throwing that out there. These are great packs if you ever looking for. And this is great sword and katana animations. So we're going to go and look at the character folder, and we're going to see where it says SK_mannequin. We're just going to rename this. We're going to call this sword_skelly. So I know it's the skeleton for my sword animations. Right? So we're going to take that, and you can do this for as many of the animation packs as you have. So if you have 3 or 4 animation packs, you can rename them as you need. This way they're easy to find for this next step. So we're going to go back to our playable character folder, open up the IK file, and then we're going to, sorry, I almost clicked on new folder. We're going to go down to animation, and we're going to click on the IK rig option. And then from here, it'll let us select any one of our rigs, and this is where renaming them actually becomes very handy, because if I type in sword, you can see sword skelly pops up. So even with, excuse me, even with all of these different things here, you could have 20 or 30 different skeletons based off of the packs that you have in there, so it can be hard to find the specific skeleton that you're looking for, especially where, these all look the same. It just says SKM Manny, SKM Manny Simple, SKM Quinn, so sometimes it's easier to rename them, you know exactly which skeleton to pick. So we're going to select the sword skelly, and do sword_skelly for sword skelly, or nope, I'm sorry, you want to go sword_IK, because this is the IK section. I apologize. So we're going to go sword underscore IK, so we know this is the IK rig for the sword animations. And we're going to make one more by right-clicking, going to animation, and IK rig. And this time we're going to select our main character. Now, as you can see here, if you're using any of the Paragon assets, most of them come with additional skins that you can use within the file that you get. So as you can see here, we have the standard Twin Blast, then we have Twin Blast Action Hero, Electro, Shadow Ops, and Summertime. But we're just going to use the Shadow Ops, so you want to make sure you're selecting the mesh that is associated to the style or skin that you're going to use. The reason why is primarily because they have certain physics assets. I know it says here you can see physics assets says none, but I have found that there is a lot better motion within the character if you use the proper skeletal mesh. So we're just going to go ahead and select that. I know it's a very long-winded way to say pick the right character, but ultimately that's what you want to do. So we're going to make sure that we have both of these, and then we're going to open them up. So we're going to open up the sword, and then we're going to double click and open up the Twin Blast. So we're going to start on the sword here, and what we're going to do is we're going to basically create what's called a chain map to tell it how to be able to move the Twin Blast character, so how to be able to move this guy. So the first thing, as you can see here, there's all the bone hierarchy, and it's all grayed out. I can't really select and kind of do anything, it just moves the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the root bone, we're going to start here, and we're going to right click it and select new retarget chain from selected bones. And then we're going to go down, it's going to say chain name, root, start bone, end bone, both root, and then we're just going to click OK. We're not going to change any of that. However, what we want to do is make sure that we set is what's called a retarget root on the pelvis. So we're going to select on the pelvis, right click, and so set retarget root. Now the reason why you want to use the pelvis and not the root bone is primarily because if I select the root bone, you're going to see all these connection points. We don't really want those, not when we're retargeting, because it's going to basically create, I guess, a lack of motion. It's not even weird motion, it's just a lack of motion. But if you set it to the pelvis, as you can see here, these lines that connect are all deselected. It's only the main skeleton that is actually highlighted, and that's what we want. So we want to make sure we set the pelvis to the retarget root. So after we've done that, we're going to go to the spine 01, then we're going to hold shift and go click on spine 03. So this way we have spine 1, 2, and 3 selected. Right click, and then also select new retarget chain from selected bones. And then, as you can see, once again, we have the chain name, start bone, end bone. Start bone is spine 01, end bone is spine 03. So we're just going to click OK. And as you can see here, another bone got added. So this is our chain mapping area. This is where all of the maps that we make are going to show up on here. Don't worry about the IK goal. This is if you're setting up hand or foot IK. Might do a tutorial at some point on how to set that up. But realistically, this is not something you want to worry about for the purposes of just setting up your animations. Mainly end bone, start bone, chain name. You just want to make sure that these are all very similar because they're going to be the same on the Twin Blast, which will make more sense here in a moment. So now that we have the spine, now we want to get the clavicle. So we're going to click on the clavicle underscore L, and then shift click down on hand L. This way the upper arm, lower arm, clavicle, and the hand are all selected. And just like before, we're going to right click, new retarget chain from selected bones. So now we have the left arm and the spine retargeted, as well as the root bone. But we also want to make sure things like the fingers are able to get their own motion, just because these are things that have their own set of transforms for animations. So if you don't do this, you will get no finger motion. So if you don't really care about the way the hands are, you can skip this step for some things. But if you do want to make sure that the fingers are moving in the same fashion as they are in the animations, like in the original animation, you want to make sure to retarget the fingers. So we do the same thing like we did before. We're just going to click on index 1, shift click down on index 3, right click, and retarget chain from selected bones. Do the same thing on the middle, shift click down, select everything, retarget those, and then the pinky, and then the ring and thumb. Whoops, don't want to have the thumb selected though. Because you want to make sure these are all in their own individual chain maps. So now you can see we have the thumb, the ring, the pinky, the middle, the index, the clavicle, spine, and root. So now we have the start for our left side. However, now we have to do the right side, because we do not need the lower arm twist or the upper arm twist. So we're going to click on the clavicle, and just do like what we did before, shift click on hand R, right click, and retarget that section, and then do the same on this side. Now I know this can be a little tedious, but it is ultimately the best way to ensure that you have all the animations. So you want to kind of go through and make sure you have all the fingers selected, you know, like with the little pinky here. We want to make sure we have that selected in case we try to do any fancy animations and, you know, try to have him have his pinky out while he's drinking a cup of tea or something. You know, you don't want to miss out on those little details. So always make sure to go through this process. Even though I know it's tedious, it creates some really, really nice control looks. So now that we've got the hands and the arms all selected and retargeted, we're going to also want to make sure we get the neck and the head. Now, depending on the mesh that you're working with, you might have like neck 2, neck 3, that's okay. You can select those as well. You just want to make sure anything that says neck underscore and then a number is selected. So we're going to go neck 1 and the head, and then we're going to retarget these on their own group. And now we're going to get down to the legs. So the legs are done a little bit differently. So as you can see here, we have calf twist. Just like in the upper arm, we don't want the twists. We just want the bone motions. So we're going to shift click down to where it says ball underscore L, and then control click on where it says calf twist. This way it deselects that and just keeps the bones that we need for retargeting. So then we're going to skip over thigh twist, go down to thigh R, shift click down to ball, control click on calf twist, and retarget those as well. And that's all for that skeleton. We should have 17 total retarget chains, so let's do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Look at that, beautiful. Alright, so now we have that. We're going to save that and go over to our Twin Blast skeleton. And we're going to do basically the same thing. I just want to show you guys exactly what you would do with a more complex skeleton, as this guy has a lot of unnecessary bones when it comes to retargeting. So we're going to do like what we did before, go to the root bone, and we're going to retarget chain from selected bones, make sure that's set, and then go to the pelvis and select retarget root. Spine 1 through 3, retarget those, and the clavicle. Now this is a good stopping point for a moment, so I want to show you, see how it says forearm underscore gears underscore L. We don't need that, because that's not part of any of the skeleton structure within our sword, so we don't need that. So what we're going to do is just like what we did on the leg, we're going to control click or shift click everything, and then control click the forearm gears, and then right click and retarget that. Because again, we don't need those unnecessary bone structures. We only need the main parts of the skeleton, like the fingers here, you know, the spine, the head, the neck, all those things. Like, we just want the main skeletal structure, not any of the additional things. And the thing that's cool about having some extra bones on a character that are not tied to an animation, because they are technically tied to the pelvis, they'll move with the character, but you can use them and create different movements for things. So I'll go over this in a later video, but it's just something really cool to point out. So as you can see here, now that we've got the thumb, and we're going to skip over all this lower arm plate and forearm or weapon forestock. You know, we're going to change all, we're going to ignore all of that, and we're just going to go right down, just like before, to the clavicle. But as you can see here, this guy's got a bunch of grenade fin 1 through 6, and then grenade front, and, you know, we don't want to shift click that, because it's going to take forever to select what we actually want. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to use control click to select what we want. So we're going to click on the clavicle R, then hold control, and then go upper arm, lower arm, and hand. This way it skips over all of this. And the easy way to determine whether or not you should use a shift click or a control click is realistically which one is going to cause you less clicks. So if it's going to take more to be able to do, you know, like individually clicking each one rather than deselecting, then, you know, do whatever is going to work best for you. For this one, I'm just going to go ahead and just bypass them all. So we're going to go ahead and do the index fingers for this guy, the middle fingers for this guy, and then, of course, the pinky. Can't forget the pinky for those fancy-dancy little tea-drinking animations, like I was saying before. And then we're going to do the thumb, because we want him, you know, he's got to be able to do a thumbs up or something, right? Alright, and now you can see here there's a bunch of ultimate body kind of stuff. We're just going to scroll right past that, because, again, don't need any of that. However, this one, as you can see here, has the neck 1, neck 2, and head. Just like I said before, we're going to select all of these. We're going to make sure that if it says neck 0, or underscore, and then a number, that they are selected. So we got neck 1, neck 2, and head. And we're going to scroll past the face attach, and go down to the foot, which is structured the same way. So we're not going to do anything additional here. We're just going to do thigh, shift click, and then control click on calf, retarget, click OK, call it done. And then once again, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 retarget chains. Beautiful. I'm going to click on save, and we're going to minimize. And now that we have our 2 retarget rigs and we've set up their retarget mapping, now we want to create the actual retargeter for this. And this is basically, now that we've told it how to incorporate the movements between the 2 skeletons, now we want to tell it, okay, well, now I want it to do it on this animation, and this animation, and this animation. It's going to take specific animations and then recreate it for that character. So what we're going to do is go to the IKR folder. We're going to right-click, go to Animation, click on the IK Retargeter this time, not the IK Rig, so the IK Retargeter, the little blue one. And then we're going to make sure to select our sword skeleton, not our main character, because this is going to be only for wherever their animations are coming from, so the source of the animations, not where they're going to, so like your main character, or your AI, or any character that's going to be in your game. So we want to make sure to select the sword IK here. And we're going to go sword underscore IKR, so that way I know this is the retargeter for the sword. And then we're going to double click and open it up. As you can see here, we have our little mannequin here, and it's got some, attacks here. We'll just do the in-place one, so I don't have to keep moving my camera. But as you can see here, there's nothing else. There's no, it's not saying, oh yeah, we're going to do this on this skeleton. Well, easy way to fix that is up here where it says Target IK Rig Asset. We're going to go to where it says None, click on the drop-down menu, and this is where we're going to select the character that we want to retarget the animations to. So we're going to go click on TB IK, and now if I go to chain mapping, we also want to make sure to select the root, and then go to where it says Translation Mode, and then click on Globally Scaled. What this is going to allow is if you wanted to use root motion animations, this will allow root motion to actually work, because otherwise it's not going to work. So you just need to make sure that the root bone specifically is globally scaled. You don't have to change anything else within the structure. But now if I go to the asset browser, and I personally like the katana animations, so we'll look up katana blade, and we'll just click on this combo. So now if I click play, you'll see he's moving exactly how the other character is. His hands are kind of like a gripping motion on the sword. He's doing his swing. All really, really, really nice. And you can do this for any animation. So I can do that one. I can do this one, which I will say I have actually used this kick. These two together are actually pretty cool. And you can use these in any way you want. So what we're going to do is we're just going to to show you, we're going to take this one and this one. Actually, we'll take 3, and yeah, we'll take these 2. So if you wanted to, let's say, do more than one animation, you can either shift click or let's say control click to get, let's say you don't want all these in between. You can select multiple at a single point, and then up here it says export selected animations. I'm going to click on that, and we'll just throw them into our playable character folder. So just click OK, it'll save them. So if we minimize, you'll see now we have 3 animations in our playable character folder. And if I open it up, it's only for the twin blast skeleton. It's not showing the additional mannequin in there. So I can use these animations in an attack sequence, or I can use them in a kick sequence, or if I had a running animation, I could use that in a blend space. So all of these things allow you to be able to use them in a way that you would use any other animation type. It just allows you to be able to take something that wasn't originally compatible with your main character and take that and go, no, I want this to be compatible, and make it so. So this is how you would do that. So it's a very easy process, and you can do this multiple times. You just want to make as many IK retargeters as you would need for source animations. On a game that I'm currently working on, I have about 6 to 7, I would say, different animation packs that I'm utilizing for vaulting and climbing and attacks and all these different things. Because one thing to keep in mind is that you need animations for every single thing your character is going to do within your game. This includes crouching, this includes jumping, the whole sequence. Everything needs to have its own animation. So as long as you have that, you can then use that within other features within Unreal Engine, which we'll be covering later in later videos. So, but I hope this was informative. It was very important to me to try and get some Unreal Engine-based videos out there. So, any sort of feedback, if you guys have anything you'd like to, if I did something wrong or if there's a better way to do it, always welcome for feedback. So please, either leave a comment or go ahead and excuse me, I apologize, and just message me directly on YouTube. Always happy to talk with any of my viewers. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Like and hit subscribe. And as always, stay animated.